so much, there's only about $170 million in that Robin grant statewide. So $170 million statewide, and Allegan County is asking for 30 of it. So in this first round, I would be surprised if we get it all. I'm hoping for half or 2/3, and half is the magic number. If we get 15 million of it, that's enough for 123.net to start the build. And then we'll get the balance in the second round. So if we can at least get 15, that's the magic number they committed to that said they would get started with the build. So.
Great. Okay.
Anything else?
I don't have any.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, next on the agenda is the roundtable discussion amongst council members. Does anybody have anything they'd like to discuss at roundtable? Go ahead, Laura. Get us started.
Sure. So I do have a little bit of an insider track with our marijuana excise tax payments. And plus it was also published in the county administrator's report because the county discussed it at their meeting. But the state will be funding each municipality with licenses for marijuana retail or micro businesses at a rate of $51,841.21 per license. So Allegan will be getting paid for 3 licenses, Allegan City. We've got the, not Joyology yet, Timber, Green Door, and then the business out by McDonald's has a license, but they've never technically opened, but we're still getting paid because they have the license. So Allegan City, from what the state had released, is getting about $155,523.63 for that tax. So.
Do they get anything for the grow facility or not?
So I believe that that's paid at a different rate.
Okay, but it's still in the same.
Yeah, so next year, we could be getting paid on up to 6 different licenses. If the one at Hooker Road opens, and then we've got Joyology, which makes 4, and then we have that grow license too, which I think is paid separately at a different rate, like I said, but my source is working on that for me to find out the amount. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of share that. So I don't know, I don't believe that there's any structures by the state of how those funds are used unless they just go into the general fund. Peter, do you remember when you guys were working on that and planning, if there was anything that
Like we had to use it for something?
that we had to put it towards anything? I didn't think so either.
We could ourselves select to do that in our budgeting, but it's not dedicated to a certain fund. And I think it is only retail and micro grow. Any grow facilities don't ever count, as
They
far
don't
as I
get
could tell when I was
anything.
looking through the history on the payouts. I
Okay.
haven't seen any payouts for just grow facilities, so. Because that was part of the debate of just allowing grow and sale retail, because if you only allowed grow, you wouldn't get any excise tax.
Okay.
So it was kind of like, okay, you're allowing that, but you're not getting any of the taxes for it.
Taxes. All right, well, hopefully he comes back with that same info. So still, next year we could get paid on 5. So I don't know whether that's just gonna go right into the general fund this year, or if we do wanna talk about somehow earmarking some of those funds in future. You know, we've got some parks that could use some help, and if we set aside a specific percentage every year, that, I don't know, just something to, Tracy's making a face at me. Yeah, so,
Roads.
Roads would make sense. Bridges too. Trestle Bridge is still closed.
so just something to kind of think about in our current budgeting process and then moving forward, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry in the state right now, and I don't see that changing much, except maybe getting bigger. We know that our market will dictate how many licenses remain, but, well, we get it. Let's do something good with it.
That's great.
Good, thanks, Laura. Does anybody have anything else that they want to discuss?
Yeah,
Okay,
our fines.
okay.
I'm gonna hit that until we get into an idea of what we should be doing. Currently, do we have any way of tracking what we have taken in for ordinance violations?
Yes.
Do we have that information?
Right now, I do not. I'd have to filter it out. It's minimal.
That's what I thought. I heard from previous discussions, our mayor said, oh, I like the idea of this, giving them a thing. He does that, and it doesn't do any good. They just fill it up again. It's a constant battle, and we don't seem to get anywheres with it. I did some looking up on fines of other communities. I looked up Plainville's, which was ridiculously high, I thought. And I looked up some of the other ones. Joel sent us all information. I think we need to look at ours and increase our fine structure. Not to the rate that Plainville has done, obviously.
Tracy, do you know when the last time that we would have changed the fines? Has it been quite a long time?
1983.
It's been since before me that those have been updated, so I remember when Lori was going through, when we were gonna redo ordinances, when Lori was here, and we looked at those things, like with Aaron and that, and nothing ever came of it, or we never finished that, so since I've been here, we have not changed them.
I think that should be addressed by the ones doing the ordinance, going over them again. To Laura?
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, and I had a conversation with Bill as well, that I could see if they've been in place for 40 years, that it could be time to increase those rates. I don't want to go astronomically high, so it's out of reach for people, but we could be comparable with other communities in the area. And if we went up even, $100 for the first offense or something like that, I think that was pretty close to some of those that Joel had sent. So, I'm not vehemently opposed to.
What are we considering the first offense? Because right now, they go up and they tell them to clean it up. To me, that would be the first offense. That's our first point of interest with these people. Okay? The second one, we go up there and tell them again. The third one, we go up and tell them again. We don't write them citations. They've had 3 chances or 4 chances to clean their messes up in some cases. Other cases, there are other ordinances that need to be taken care of, but I don't want to feel heavy-handed with people, as it was so bluntly put to me by one of our other council members, but we do need to address it, I feel.
I guess that's direction council would need to give to, our
Yeah.
enforcement, which is our local police department. I know that Chief Gibson has said that he typically, takes more of a hands-off approach at first and tries to be, understanding of people's situations, and I get that, whether it's, you get a first warning and then the citations start, or, how we would address that, but.
Well, to me, warnings are the first thing that they've done. That's their first, I don't know the word I want to use, but that's their first time that they've become in contact with whatever the problem is. And then they do it a second time, they do it a third time. I don't know how many times they do it, but then they don't ever follow through.
I think a letter is the starting point.
That's what Michaela's been doing. That
Then-
doesn't do any good.
Yep,
People just
and
throw them
then
away.
The next time is maybe when the fines start, is my personal opinion.
I don't have a problem with Jay going up and giving them in the case of trash and things, giving them a, what's he call it? A coupon to take care of it and clean it up. I don't have a problem with that, but that would be step 2 in that case. Then the third step would be the fines would start. That's not being heavy-handed, I don't believe.
So I'm interested, Michaela, do you have any idea when we send a letter, what percentage of people respond and that's the last we have to deal with it? Or are we getting no response?
I would say that probably half of the properties remedy whatever they're getting cited for. I always list Jay as their point of contact because he is obviously a little more eyes and ears of the community. I'm kind of just here. I do go out in the community and whatever, as needed, but I would say probably with follow-through, probably about 50% of the people that I've issued letters to have actually cleaned up.
Okay.
I think it's a little too soon for me to say whether they will continue in
Yeah.
that direction, on
Right.
that path, but yeah.
Okay. That's helpful.
Roger, I like your idea of tracking metrics. I think that's really important. How bad is the problem and what's effective? Getting to know that would really help, I think.
And if it makes sense to come in line with where other cities our size, I'm fine with or taking a look at our fine structure. I'm not big on punitive, but things to motivate people to comply, probably good.
And I agree with Bill, if they've had one or two warnings, it's time they start paying,
Yeah.
for the time, for staff time, so.
Looks, sorry, sore throat today. Looks like it was 97, we updated the fine structure going by the ordinances. So that's the last update that I see in our Muni code. So it's been a while, 1997.
Yeah, that's a few years.
6 years ago.
I'd
Yeah.
also like to just point out that I appreciate council members Hance's rich baritone that he has this evening. Very soothing.
Michaela, what is it that you're, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, I know that you're starting kind of ordinance tracking. What is it all that you are tracking with that?
So I have a file for every address that I've issued a citation to in my office, and so any pictures that are taken, I keep a copy of the pictures in the file as well. And I also write them on my board so that I can keep track of when their compliance date is.
Oh, good idea.
And then once their compliance date is up, then I'll email some people at the police department and ask them to go check up on the address, and we take pictures at every step. So if someone hasn't complied at their compliance date, we still take pictures and say, hey, this hasn't been cleaned up. That way, if it ever does need to go to court, we have pictures to document every step of the way.
Perfect.
So tracking like contacts, how many times people are out for contact or no?
I mean, yeah, in the regard that, I have a copy of every notice, but I don't necessarily have like a running tally, but it would be easy to find that.
People from Click Fix or whatever that is.
Yeah, everything's entered in C-Click-Fix, so there's ways of seeing, how many notices we've had for blight, how many we've seen for long grass or different violations, and what step they're at, whether they've been acknowledged, whether they're closed out, all of that.
So maybe where we need to start or go with this is maybe council needs to write up their own ideas of maybe how many offenses, what they'd like to see. And then we can talk about it again, and kind of give staff maybe some direction on what we'd like to see happen, see if it's feasible, and rewrite our, yep.
Fine structure.
Everybody'd like to be a part of that and do that.
Already did it.
Okay. Okay.
Bill's ahead of the game.
And then maybe we'll bring it up at roundtable again at the next meeting and have somewhat of a, if there's 3 or 4 of us that decide to give them 2 chances or 3 chances or whatever, and maybe even jot down what you decide, what you think the fees might be or what you think would be fair.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful too. I mean, just from the tax, like when we're assessing them on their properties and things like that, things I've noticed, having like what your expectations are as far as fees and that, but then, like having almost a procedure of what you guys think, and thinking through all of the circumstantial things too. I mean, you know, if somebody asks for an extension and things like that, and just have everything like laid right out, and then that's the directive that the police have to follow, whether they want to give them 2 breaks instead of just 1. I mean, if you guys have, you know, you can go out, see what their situation is, and work with them on certain things. But, you know, when you get to those points, and then we're having somebody else come and clean up a property, and then we assess it, and then it has to go on their taxes, and that takes time. We give them time to pay it, otherwise it goes on the taxes and things like that. But I mean, thinking through all of those things, I think there's stuff that we can come up with. But if you guys get us the high-level stuff, we can come up with, you know, kind of a procedure for that. But then we'll have to have, you know, tell Jay this is what your procedures need to be. And at this point, then we're doing that. And, you know, whether we're working with Michaela and I on you know, the fines part of it. Yeah. Because what I've also seen is we've done the mowing, sent out the invoices, added it to the taxes, and then something happens and city managers just say, I'll write that one off this time, you know? So we do need to think about all of these things all the way through so that it's not more of an administrative nightmare than it needs to be. That's just my 2 cents from the tax side of things.
Does staff know who's responsible for this in the case of rental of properties?
Yep.
Is the landlord responsible?
Nope. Well, the homeowner,
Yeah, the landlord,
yeah,
and not really the people renting it then.
correct.
So when you send out a summons or whatever, it goes to the landowner?
It would go
It
to
goes to
the,
both, so it
Yeah.
goes to whoever's renting and also the property owner.
Okay. Thank you.
yep,
Thank you, Tracy. That's some good inside scoop.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about them waiving it and all that, so that's good. So maybe council can do some homework and we'll bring it up again at the next meeting.
I can also send you guys too, just in between this meeting and next meeting, some, from my listserv and that I've got, other, I guess it would be more of a policy procedure type from other communities. I can share some of those with you.
Yeah, that would
They're
be helpful.
easy enough to download and email to you, so
Okay.
I'll do that.
That'd be great. Thank you, Tracy.
Sorry to make you do work.
It's fine, I love
Does
it.
anybody have anything else for roundtable? Okay, if not, I have one thing that's been brought to my attention. And we've noticed that not everyone is voting on each issue that comes before council, but it's imperative that we get an audible vote from every council member on each issue, so that we are fulfilling our mandate as elected officials. So if you aren't voting, we need to make sure that gets on there. And if you need to see the rules, there's a city council rules and procedures, and it is on 5B, and I'm just gonna read it so that everyone understands it's been being done correctly in the past, but so it says, calling for the vote. In the first instance, the mayor or member presiding over the council meeting shall call for a voice vote for and against the matter by yes and no. We say yes and nay responses. If on a voice vote, no council member states opposition to the motion, it shall be deemed to have passed unanimously. In the event any council member votes against a proposition, it shall be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. It's simply saying, if you haven't said yay and you don't say nay, it's taken as a yes vote. So we prefer, because of the videotaping and everything, that everybody at least make a yes or a nay loud enough so that everyone can hear. Because in the past, it has been taken as a yes vote. So, okay? So we just appreciate that. Makes it easier for the minutes as well, so. Is there anything else for roundtable? Did you have some, Dave?
Yeah, I can share that I attended the first of the quarterly meetings for the Solid Waste Planning Committee at the county level. We did approve an application for what's essentially a processing plant. It would be in Door Township. The Kent County landfill comes almost right up against the Allegan County border. And so this is a transfer station or processing plant within Allegan County, but it's butted up right against Kent County's landfill, and it's run by Kent County's Department of Public Works. There's another company that's doing the build, and I think is gonna operate it, but it's in partnership with the Kent County Public Works. There was a little bit of an exception for some siting rules for distances, but this is an indoor facility, not a landfill. Everything seemed sufficiently contained, but they'll be receiving municipal solid waste, sorting it, processing plastics. There's going to be a digester in there, so they'll be taking organic waste and converting it to methane gas, and then actually using that methane gas for energy for the plant as well. So it seemed like a really good move in the right direction. And then the other item that came up was the solid waste plan for the county is overdue for a rewrite, and the state has created some new rules, especially around objectives for how much solid waste gets recycled. So the county is going to start strategizing around how to rewrite that plan. We're still a little ways out, but there's some options on how we approach it. So the committee's starting that discussion.
Thank you, David. Is that something the commissioners are involved in, or is that just like a,
There's Gail Dugan is the county commissioner who attends those meetings.
okay, all right, good, thank you. Is there anything else from council? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move on down to number 4 on our agenda, which is review of downtown streetscape project update report. Parker, are you taking this?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
No problem. As part of our regular updates to you all regarding the improvement project, we've got a review of the work that was completed during the month of February. There was a joint open house at City Hall hosted by MDOT regarding their M89 project and also how it intertwines with our downtown improvement project. That was held earlier in the month. I know council members Zeter and Morgan attended, as did Mayor Pro Tem Byrd and Mayor Galloway. So that it was a well-attended meeting that I think a lot of people got some good information from. The city staff members met with the developers for the proposed hotel at 101 Brady to ensure that the work that the city's going to be doing in the Phase 1 portion of the improvement project is just going to work well with what they have planned for their work, which is expected to begin at the end of this year. In conjunction with Abbenmarsh and state and federal representatives, there's a groundbreaking ceremony that's been scheduled that will be a week from today. I sent out a little invite to you all as also in receipt of that email with all of our board members from our other city boards and committees. So that will be the 20th at 11 o'clock. It's going to take place at the future Trowbridge Plaza, which is right in between Minnie's Restaurant and the Regent Arcade Showroom. We've got plans to have our ceremonial pile of dirt and gold shovels. We've got a number of guest speakers, some light refreshments and such as well, so that should be a good time. And Michaela was looking at the weather already a week out from today, and it should be sunny in 40s, so no snow like today, hopefully. And then the other big news to share today was a different story, but in talking with Milbacher and the favorable weather that we've had in the past couple of weeks, they are ready to get started a bit earlier than expected. The original start date was April 3rd. They are now planning to start on March 20th, which will be the same day as that groundbreaking ceremony. Exact location for start is yet to be determined, but they will start bringing down equipment and stacking things and piling things on Monday, and then the actual work, they will do some digging on Tuesday is when that will officially start. So you'll start to see some stuff next week. So Exciting times.
That is exciting. Thank you, Parker.
And these
Any-
numbers will start getting bigger here on this, payment history.
That'll also be the fun part.
Any questions for Parker or Tracy on that?
Just, if we're moving up the dates, did we kind of notify the businesses and get an
Yes.
idea of which roads are going to be closed and when, so we can set up
Yep,
good
absolutely.
information for their detours?
Yeah, the first group to know about the March 20 start date was our downtown lowdown group that meets every month. And then it was also shared at our Downtown Development Authority meeting, which is comprised of 8 business owners from the downtown. It was shared at our Public Spaces Commission as well. And then a follow-up email to like 80-some email addresses that are all downtown business owners. So everybody is well aware and will continue to be updated.
Do we have to put out flyers or anything to the businesses along the road that's going to be closed, the first ones, just to be like, if they're not in the lowdown, they're not in any of these other communications, just to be like, here's a flyer, here's
Yeah.
the detour idea, and here's the date schedule? Just
Absolutely.
because I know that there'll be people that are like, I didn't know this was happening, and
Most definitely.
it's
Why didn't anybody talk about
about this.
Are you ready to talk about the coupon book at all, or is that still too
Oh, yeah.
premature?
No, we can
Okay.
absolutely talk about that. That was another thing that was shared at our DDA meeting and our downtown lowdown meeting. What we're developing is essentially like a downtown passport booklet. There'll be 2 different ones, one for this year's construction work and next year's. It'll be a booklet that's got all downtown retail, dining, and service businesses. It's not going to include like offices, insurance agencies, or lawyers, but it will include the services like tattoo parlors or hair salons. And then it'll basically be a stamp book. We've ordered a City of Allegan logo stamp to give to all of the participating businesses. Anybody that would like a booklet is to come and pick it up at City Hall. And they've got the months of April until, I think we're going to end it in October, if not November, to complete that booklet. There'll be a certain number of businesses that they'll have to hit. It won't be 100% completion, but there'll be like 2 different tiers. You complete it at 40% and you get entered into prize drawing for prize A. And then if you complete over 50% of your booklet, then you get entered into the drawing for prize B kind of deal. So, and that'll take place over the winter months, that drawing, and then the program will restart again come springtime when construction restarts. So it's just a way to kind of incentivize people to, but remind them that downtown's open and incentivize them to shop down here during that period of time that will be admittedly a struggle, I'm sure, for a lot of businesses. So
Okay, thank you, Parker.
yeah, thank you for asking about it.
Any other questions about the streetscape? Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll move on down to number 5, which is discussion regarding the MML Community Exchange Day. This is something that pre-mayor has been pushing for, and it's kind of exciting, so one of you guys want to talk about it, or?
Yeah, I'll take this one.
Okay, great, Michaela, thank you.
So as you know, we filled out the application for the Community Exchange Day. I want to say it was December, and that was successfully submitted, and we were matched with Fremont, Michigan, which is located just north of Muskegon. And so I have some stats up on the screen for you, where it just kind of compares side by side Allegan versus Fremont, and I think that they did a very good job pairing us with Fremont, since we're very similar, at least in those 3 aspects. And then I also added the prospective dates that Fremont provided us with. This is an opportunity that's available for any community member, not just city council. So if we did have business owners that wanted to participate and go see what their downtown looks like, or how they kind of operate on a daily basis, that's something that is available for them, for anyone to participate. So we kind of put this on the study session so you guys can discuss what council wants to get out of this experience, who you might want to extend an invitation to participate in this, and yeah, just kind of feel out what you guys are wanting to get out of this experience.
Quick question. Is this just us going to Fremont and then they come back here? Is that the way that that works? I have
Yes,
thought-
so-
this is the trip for us to
Yes.
go to Fremont?
Correct.
Okay. So yes, as Teresa said, I've been kind of excited about this since I got appointed to council in 2018. So very happy that it seems to be coming to fruition. I had a family member that served on council many years ago in the 80s, and he had said that it was just a really great experience to see how other communities that are similar to ours operate. So thank you, everybody, for playing along with it. But I think it would be really helpful if we opened it to all of our committee members, all of our volunteers on our various
Think
committees.
so. Yeah.
And I would be fine really with whatever day I would love to attend, so whatever day works for other council members, you know, I'm happy to make that work.
Michaela, would you be okay if we submitted you an email with our preference of these dates?
Absolutely, yes.
And then we can just kind of do whatever works for the majority?
Sure.
Would that be all right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be great.
So we want to do that and let Michaela know what works, if you're interested in going. If you're not interested in going, also let her know so we're not waiting, please. Because it'd be an all-day thing, from what I read, correct? We'd just meet there and.
Correct.
Yep, okay. So,
Is staff involved as well? Like, would, like the clerk and treasurer and everybody?
That's my understanding,
Okay,
yes.
our finance director. Okay. Are there days that work better for staff as far as like of the week? Anything that's like payroll or any of those dates up there?
okay. No, nobody wants to go away on a Monday. Well, maybe we'd all like to be away, but, okay. So we'll do that, Michaela, and then you can gather it up and we'll let, what's his name? Jim? No, Ryan. What was his name?
Jim sounds about right.
Jim? Anyway, we can get with him and let him know after we'll bring it up at the next council meeting again. So more
Perfect.
homework for council.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, review the council agenda for tonight's regular meeting. Was there anything on that we needed to change? I didn't see anything. Okay.
I didn't have any changes, but I did have a quick question
Okay, go
about
ahead.
the chicken ordinance. So, Michaela, you were working on like an application, is that right? I'm sorry, I'm slightly obsessed.
So I haven't began working on one. I figured that since there is going to be a 21-day lapse, if you will, between when, if you guys choose to adopt the ordinance, before it would be effective, in that time I'd be able to develop an application.
I didn't see in the draft ordinance if there would be any sort of a fee associated with the application. I have been asked whether or not the city is looking like an application fee or a permit fee.
There hasn't been any discussion, to my knowledge, as far as assessing a fee.
I received an email as well about someone who says it's not fair to have a fee for that if we don't have a fee to get a permit for dogs, and now they do have to pay a license fee yearly, but, so
We do have
I was
fees
curious
for
about that as well.
a couple other things that we've had fees on for when we have food trucks, they have to pay a fee. It's mostly just a cost of office work fee. Normally it was like a $5 or $10. It's never been a very heavy fee. It's just to kind of cover the cost of processing the paperwork. But we could waive it or have it or not. But if there is a couple other instances that we do have them, we're just usually keep them low.
I'm not advocating for a fee, just bringing it up as I
Yeah.
did have somebody ask whether there would be one. I'm fine with there not being one, but if that's something that staff feels would recoup some of their administrative costs, then I can definitely entertain that as well. Tracy?
I always like fees.
Just for reference, like Councilmember Hans mentioned, the food truck fee is a once annual $10 fee to operate a mobile food vendor license in the city limits.
We have that same, I think, for trash companies are supposed to pay a fee. And also for a couple other things, we had fees when we were going through the ordinances, but they all were relatively small, just covering, if you have an application, it's gonna take staff 30 minutes to go through, process it, file it. It's just 30 minutes to an hour of staff time.
What would you think would be a reasonable fee, if that's something that council wanted to go forward with? $25? Dollars? Sorry, that wasn't very professional.
I'm not for charging a fee, but that's my opinion.
I guess what's everybody's thoughts? Would you want there to be a processing or like a permit fee?
Do we have a fee for any other animals?
Well, they aren't really pets, so. You know, I wouldn't be comparing it to dogs, I don't see how that.
I wouldn't worry about a fee personally, but
I'm not for a fee, but that's me.
Is there, what kind of paperwork does staff have? What kind of time requirement what kind of time requirement would staff have for an application to have chickens?
well, other reasons you might have fees would be you want to make sure that it's somebody who's serious about having chickens, which they should have a coop, and there's some requirements here that I would think staff would want to verify at some point. And so that may actually be a reasonable reason to have a fee if we think, the flip side of that is your goal to get in touch with all these people who actually have chickens and get them to apply, and would a fee actually discourage them? Like if we say, oh, it's a $200 application fee, staff will come out, make sure your coop's all in good order, and then it will come out once a year. Or do we just want to find out where all the chickens are and make sure people are playing by the rules, and then we can go through enforcement and say, okay, well, you didn't fill out the permit, and it doesn't appear that you're meeting our ordinance, so you gotta get your chickens out of here. That's where my mind goes. I don't know which one's better or worse. I'd love to see a subcommittee look at this and provide input and thought on what the whole process looks like, because I think there's a lot that goes into that thinking, but in absence of that, personally, if we can't figure out why we're doing a fee, I just don't know that I can justify it.
I agree with Dave on that part because I didn't read the chicken ordinance yet. However, if people are gonna have to apply for it, then I would say, you know, I mean, if it's just like having a dog, you're probably just going to the county to do that. You're not gonna come to City Hall to register, you know. If it's not something that people are gonna have to come in here, ask permission for, then I say we don't worry about any of that. And the most time we're gonna have into it is if there's a problem. And then, you know, that's probably gonna come through us a little bit of time and then go over to the police department for ordinance enforcement. But, you know, then that's a whole other issue and fines. So, but it depends on how it was set up too.
It's just set up that they need to apply and be given a permit, and then there are parameters of, you know, the number of chickens, depending on the lot size, where that coop would be situated on the lot, you know, that they need to be enclosed. And I guess I would see enforcement coming out of that, much like any other of the animal ordinances, which would be by a complaint process. So if somebody called and said, hey, they've got 12 chickens and they're running loose in the city, then we would send somebody out and make sure that it was actually being followed, but.
Well, I kind of viewed if you're gonna have a fee, it was mostly, if they're coming in to do the application and we're having to print off all this paperwork and give them the paperwork to explain to them where they can and can't have chickens, how many they can have. Are we not doing any site plan review? Is that happening at all? To just kind of, this is the rules, stay within it? If they're coming in to do it, then we have our material costs and all that to address. That's where it's like a $5 fee. I don't think is anything astronomical to ask them for $5 or $10 to, here's the rules. It's more of a, like Dave said, with the fee, you know, they're at least serious. They at least got the paperwork then as well and said, this is the ordinance, this is the rules. You know, these are the fines if you don't follow the rules. And so it's an education, if we don't want that, and it's just strictly like any other ordinance where it's, this is the existing ordinance, and just stay within the ordinance, and there's no license or fee, or if there's no licensing, no permitting, then there wouldn't be a need for a fee, like you were saying, it's, so that's my 2 pass on it.
We got our first reading tonight, so if we want to make any changes, we'd want to let those be known so it can be done before the second reading and the public hearing. I mean, like I said, I'm fine either way. I would be fine with a $10 permit fee with the
And this
application,
does
or
say, application shall be accompanied by a fee in an amount set by resolution of the city council. So it does already say in here about a fee, so like Dolores said, we'll need to change that.
Are they gonna have to post a permit saying that they can have them or not?
I don't think, I
Because
would
how else
assume
is
that
anybody gonna know they can have them?
the city would just have the application here on file, would be my thought.
And I would
Yeah, it's not in our
probably
head.
ask, Michaela to put it into her file for the individual properties. That would be easy, then if there's a code enforcement, you already have it, hey, they have a permit, or they came in and applied, or they don't.
No, it doesn't sound like, because they're not enforcing it now. There are people now with chickens in their yards and nobody does anything about it.
The complaint-based system, Bill.
Oh,
That's because
complaint basis?
there's two
Complaint-based.
separate, there's conflicting ordinances, which we noticed when we were looking through the ordinances. The zoning ordinance expressly prohibits it, but the animal ordinance spoke about fowl being able or not able to be running loose. So we're like, wait a minute, this kind of alludes to the fact that you can have chickens, but zoning says you can't. So I know that just from speaking with the police department, that they weren't sure how to enforce something that had discrepancy like
So they
that.
just let them run loose?
Well, I know that they shut down anybody that was trying to sell eggs out of their house and did go into a couple properties and tell them that they weren't able to have them, but, so that's what we were trying to get cleaned up.
Will people be allowed to sell eggs?
I believe it's listed in there that they can't set up a farm stand, wasn't, it's in there somewhere?
Which I think that was speaking to more of like a permanent structure, built maybe in someone's yard to sell eggs. But my understanding is that if it were something that wasn't like a permanent stand, then they would be allowed to.
Yeah. I.
Go ahead.
It says eggs or meat produced from the chickens kept under this chapter may be consumed by the property owner or sold to others, so long as such sales occur off premises, e.g. via delivery or as part of a farmer's market. Does not authorize the operation of farm stands on residential property.
Off premises, they just walk out into the street, here's the money, here's the eggs, and you're off premises.
People just pulling up.
I've done that in the county parking lot. My egg supplier comes and meets me in the parking lot.
What you got? I got 2 dozen.
Don't laugh, I had them delivered to my house.
Big cartel.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the ordinance itself, I'm happy with the way that it's written. I just wanted to discuss that fee, and I guess it depends on, I mean, it does say that it would be set by resolution, so.
It sounds like there'll be a little, it sounds like there'd be some work on staff's part, so collecting a $10 fee at the time of application is probably reasonable.
I'm good with 10. Going twice, so. No, Teresa didn't want one at all. So.
It's something tonight we're gonna have to decide when we go through the, when we do the first reading, so.
Discuss our chicken fee for our chicken ordinance.
Uh-huh, yeah. And Elizabeth is gonna be here at 7 to speak to us too, so, or Liz, I guess she goes by, right? So, any more discussion on that? All right, well, we're gonna let Scott get out of here and move on to his next meeting. We will adjourn this at 6:17.